I'm Lauren Whitaker, 31 years old, and I never expected that saying yes to a man I loved would lead me straight into a war over my own self-worth. The first time I stepped inside his family's estate, I thought I was meeting future in-laws, not sitting down to be judged like I was applying for a loan. I kept waiting for him to speak up, to say something, anything, as the air tightened around me like a vice. What came instead was a folder, thick and cold, placed in front of me like a final warning. And by the time I realized what that folder meant, I couldn't unsee who he really was. Before I go any further, let me know where you're listening from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand your ground when it mattered most. My life started far from marble foyers and last names that opened doors. I grew up in a small town outside Eau Claire, Wisconsin, in a beige two-story with a cracked sidewalk and a maple tree that shaded the front porch in summer. My dad taught high school algebra, and my mom ran a tiny floral shop downtown, the kind of place that made corsages in spring and wreaths in December. We never had much, but we always had enough. Dinner was at 6, chores were expected, and respect was earned one quiet day at a time. After college, I moved to Chicago with a degree in graphic design and a resume full of potential. My first job barely covered rent, but I loved the work. I spent my days building brand campaigns for local nonprofits and small businesses, and most nights eating takeout on the floor of my apartment. Money was tight, but the freedom to create made it worth it. I met Adam Blackwell at a hospital fundraiser. I wasn't there as a guest. I'd designed the event branding, and I was hovering near the back checking signage. He came up beside me, suit sharp, voice low. "That design's yours," he asked, pointing at the banner. "You managed to make something hopeful out of hospital walls." I don't know what surprised me more, that he noticed or that he meant it. We talked for a few minutes. Then he asked for my number, and for reasons I still can't explain, I gave it to him. Adam was easy to like. He came from a world of legacy donors and Ivy League degrees, but he didn't wear it like armor. He laughed easily, drove a sensible car, and took me to diners instead of rooftop bars. For the first 6 months, it was just us. I didn't ask much about his family, and he didn't offer. "They can be a lot," he'd say, brushing it off. I wanted to keep you to myself for a while. When I finally met them, it was at a brunch in Lake Forest. His mother, Evelyn, smiled like she was bracing for a storm. His father barely looked up from his tablet. His sister asked about my dress with a tone that didn't need clarification. I spent most of the meal counting how many forks were at each place setting and trying not to spill my coffee. Later, Adam explained that they were just cautious. "It's not personal," he said. "They just don't want to see me hurt again." I wanted to believe him. I told myself that once they got to know me, it would be different. A few months later, we moved in together. Evelyn sent a crystal decanter with a note that read, "For a more polished, entertaining experience." I sent a thank you card. When Adam proposed on our anniversary, I said yes without hesitation. I thought we were building something together, something separate from all that. That belief lasted right up until the night he invited me to dinner at his parents' home. "Just family," he said. A small gathering to celebrate the engagement. I wore a navy dress and brought a bottle of wine. I practiced small talk in the car. What I didn't know, what he didn't tell me, was that I wasn't walking into a dinner. I was walking into a test, a table set not with congratulations, but with conditions. And by the time dessert was served, I realized this wasn't just about marriage. It was about control, and whether or not I was willing to give mine up. The house looked the same as it had the last time, tall windows glowing warm behind sheer curtains, the gravel drive crunching under our tires. Adam reached over and gave my hand a quick squeeze. "You look beautiful," he said. "They're going to love you." I nodded, but my stomach had already started to tighten. I'd spent the afternoon choosing a dress that felt elegant but understated, something I hoped would send the right message. I told myself it was just dinner, a family dinner to celebrate the engagement and nothing more. Inside the Blackwell estate was just as polished as I remembered. White marble floors, floral arrangements at every turn, heavy portraits watching from the walls. Evelyn greeted us at the door with a soft smile and a firm air kiss. "Lauren," she said, eyeing my outfit. "That's an interesting choice. Very bold for a family dinner." I smiled and thanked her, even though my hands were starting to feel clammy. Adam's father, Robert, gave a distracted handshake without getting up from the settee. His brother Greg handed me a glass of champagne. "We're celebrating," he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. His sister Caroline arrived late with her husband in tow. "We were at the Monroe's Lake House launch," she said, brushing past me. "Do you know the Monroes?" I told her no. She nodded slowly, like that told her everything she needed to know. Dinner began with a seafood appetizer I couldn't pronounce. Conversation floated around me. Summer homes, tax attorneys, someone's third wedding. I listened, smiled when appropriate, and waited for a moment when I could join in. When I did try mentioning a design campaign I'd been proud of, Evelyn cut in smoothly. "Speaking of work," she said, dabbing her mouth with her napkin, "Adam mentioned you've never asked about his trust fund. That's quite refreshing." The main course came and went. Greg asked if my parents had ever considered real estate investment, not even a vacation property. He said, brow furrowed, as though the idea was foreign to him. "They paid off their home last year," I said. "It was a big milestone." Adam said something about different circumstances, his tone light, almost apologetic. By dessert, a small lemon tart with a sugar curl on top, I'd stopped trying. I focused on keeping my voice steady, my posture straight. The forks had been cleared when Evelyn set down her spoon and nodded at Robert. He opened a drawer in the sideboard and pulled out a folder, thick cream-colored paper, my name typed across the front. "Before we dive into wedding planning," Evelyn said, folding her hands, "there's a little business to settle." Robert slid the folder across the table. "Our attorney prepared a standard agreement," he said. "It's nothing personal." I opened it slowly. Even without reading every line, the message was clear. No claim to property, no support in the event of divorce, full confidentiality and penalties for speaking out. I looked at Adam. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on the table jaw, tight. "You knew this was coming," I said quietly. He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, he kept his voice low. "It's just a formality. It doesn't change anything between us." But it already had. I closed the folder. "I think I should have a lawyer review this," I said. Caroline laughed a light, crisp sound. "It's not negotiable, Lauren. We all signed one. It's tradition." Greg leaned forward. "If you truly love Adam, this shouldn't be a problem." I turned to Adam. "Do you think this is fair?" I asked. "Would you sign something like this if the roles were reversed?" He didn't answer. The ride home was quiet. As soon as the apartment door closed behind us, I finally spoke. "You let them ambush me," I said. "I tried to talk them out of it," he said. "But this is how it's always been. It's just how my family handles things. Handles things," I repeated. "They treated me like a gold digger, and you said nothing." "What was I supposed to do?" he asked, voice rising. "They're my family. And what am I asked. "Because I sure didn't feel like your partner tonight." He paced the living room, hands through his hair. "I love you. But the Blackwell legacy goes back generations. They're just trying to protect what's theirs." "I've never asked for their money," I said. "I know that he said, and once we're married it won't matter." But it did matter. The folder sat on our kitchen counter for 3 days. We barely spoke. I didn't open it again. On the 4th day, I called my best friend Erin. We met at a little coffee shop near our old college. The moment she saw me, her smile faded. "Okay," she said, setting down her drink. "Tell me everything." So I did. From the moment we arrived to the moment I walked out of the Blackwell estate feeling like I didn't belong. Erin listened without interrupting. "They want to make sure you stay in your place," she said quietly. "That prenup isn't protection, it's control." "I keep thinking maybe I'm making too much of it," I said. "Rich families do things differently. Being rich doesn't excuse being cruel," she said. "And Adam should have warned you." I nodded. I didn't have much to say. Later that week, I made an appointment with a lawyer, a woman named Diane, who specialized in family law. She read the document carefully, then set it down. "This is one of the most one-sided agreements I've seen," she said. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means that if you sign this and the marriage ends, you walk away with nothing. No spousal support, no property rights, not even temporary residence during separation." She paused. "There's also a confidentiality clause with financial penalties if you speak publicly about anything you see or hear in that family. Is that even legal?" She nodded. "Unfortunately, yes. I can suggest changes, some fairness clauses, a sunset clause protection if you have children. But I wouldn't sign this as it stands." That night, I showed Adam the revised version. I wasn't asking for anything extravagant, just balance. He scanned the pages. "I don't think they'll agree to this," he said. "But do you agree with it?" I asked. "Do you think it's reasonable?" He didn't answer right away. "It's not about what I think," he said. "The trust has rules." "You're 33, Adam," I said. "At what point do you stop living by someone else's rules?" The conversation ended with him leaving for a walk and coming back hours later with flowers and no apology. The next morning my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. "Is this Lauren Whitaker?" a man asked. "Yes. This is Martin Green with Green and Wallace Law. I've been trying to reach you regarding the estate of your Uncle Calvin Whitaker." I froze. "My Uncle Calvin? He named you in his will. Could you come in for a meeting this week?" I agreed, though I almost didn't. I wasn't sure I had room in my head for anything else, but something told me to go, and I had no idea, not then, just how much that meeting would change everything. The office was quiet and cool, tucked inside one of those steel and glass towers downtown, with a view of the lake. The receptionist offered me water, then led me to a corner room lined with bookshelves and framed certificates. Martin Green stood to greet me. He was older, maybe in his early 60s, with silver hair and a firm, polite voice. "Thank you for coming." "Ms. Whitaker," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "I understand you weren't close with your Uncle Calvin." I nodded. "We only met a few times when I was a kid. He and my dad had a falling out before I was born." Martin gave a small nod, then opened the file on his desk. Calvin mentioned the estrangement. He regretted it later in life, but he made certain arrangements that he was very clear about. I wasn't sure what to say, so I waited. "Your uncle was a private man. He continued, but very successful. After leaving Wisconsin, he moved to California and founded a company that developed microprocessors. He held a number of patents that became quite valuable. That caught me off guard. The only memory I had of Calvin was a quiet man who gave me a model airplane kit one Christmas. 5 years ago, he sold his company to a tech firm and invested the proceeds. He passed away 6 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. I looked down at my hands. I didn't know. "He left the bulk of his estate to you," Martin said. "Your father declined any inheritance. He preferred to keep that chapter of their relationship closed. You, however, were named as Calvin's sole remaining heir." I blinked. "I don't understand. How much are we talking about?" Martin turned a page and adjusted his glasses. "After taxes and charitable donations, the total comes to approximately $33 million. The room felt suddenly still. 33, yes. The assets are currently held in a combination of investment accounts and property, along with a modest collection of artwork. We've also prepared a list of trusted financial advisors to help you navigate the transition. I didn't say much after that, just nodded where I needed to sign where he indicated. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. When I left the building, the sun had started to sink behind the skyline. I wandered the streets without a destination, the folder still in my hands. My phone buzzed with missed calls, mostly Adam. I didn't answer. I needed to think. I kept walking until the streetlights came on. Somewhere in the distance, a train rumbled by. Back at the apartment, I slipped the folder into a drawer and didn't mention it. I wasn't ready for that conversation. I wanted to see what Adam would do with the time we had left before the prenup deadline, whether he'd still push for it, whether anything would change. In the days that followed, I met with a financial advisor named Margaret Winters. She came highly recommended and had a calm, no-nonsense way of explaining things. The key with sudden wealth, she told me, is not to act like you've suddenly changed. Take your time, don't rush into anything, and keep things quiet until you have your bearings. I appreciated her advice. She helped me build a plan, nothing flashy, just steady and responsible. Meanwhile, Evelyn kept calling. Each message was polite but more insistent than the last. The caterer needs confirmation. The club requires a deposit. We can't proceed without the paperwork. Adam and I argued again the night before the dinner at his parents' house, the one where I was supposed to return the signed prenup. "I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this," he said. "If it doesn't matter," I asked, "then why is it so important to your family that I sign it? Because that's how things are done," he said. "I can't change that." "You could try," I said quietly. He didn't answer. I lay awake that night while he slept beside me, listening to the sound of the city beyond our window. In the morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep waiting for him to see me. I picked out a black dress that felt clean and elegant. The fabric was smooth and heavy, the kind that hangs just right. It was my first real purchase since the inheritance, not to impress, just to feel solid in my own skin. As we drove to the Blackwell estate, Adam glanced at me. "You look different," he said. "Did you do something with your hair?" I shook my head. "No, I just feel different." He smiled and reached for my hand. "Once this is behind us, things will be easier. We can finally move forward." I didn't answer. When we arrived, the house looked exactly as it had before. Same gravel driveway, same formal smiles. Evelyn greeted me with a long look at my dress. "Understated," she said. "Thank you," I replied. Dinner passed like a performance. I recognized the rhythm, now the offhand remarks, the way the conversation closed ranks around me. I didn't react. I didn't try to fit in. I simply listened. When the plates were cleared, Evelyn gave the signal. Robert pulled out the same folder, placed it on the table. "I trust you've had time to review," she said. I looked around the table. "I have," I said, "and I've decided not to sign it." Silence. Evelyn's smile tightened. "That's absurd. Of course you'll sign it. All Blackwell spouses do." "I won't be a Blackwell spouse," I said. "Not under these terms." Caroline leaned back in her chair. "So it is about the money." "No," I said. "It's about respect, about not being treated like a problem to be managed." Adam looked at me, face tense. "Lauren," he said, "we've talked about this. It's not personal." "It is personal," I said. "When your family sets a trap and you let it happen, it's personal." I took off the engagement ring and placed it gently on the table. "I won't marry into a family that sees me as a liability." He stared at the ring. "You're ending things over a contract. I'm ending things because I needed you to stand beside me, and you didn't." Evelyn's voice was sharp. "I knew it. I told him you were just like the others. After the money." I reached for my purse. "I'm not walking away with nothing," I said. "My uncle passed away recently. He left me an estate, $33 million to be exact." No one spoke. Adam looked stunned. "Why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything I asked? Would you have defended me?" He didn't answer. Evelyn tried to recover. "Well, this changes things. The agreement can be revised, of course." "There's nothing left to revise," I said. "I'm not marrying Adam, not because of money, because I've seen what he does when it matters." I paused at the doorway and turned back. For what it's worth, I did love him. Not his name, just him. What a shame he couldn't see it. Then I left. The drive home felt quieter than it should have. No music, no conversation. Just the hum of the road and the city lights slipping past the windshield. Adam didn't try to stop me when I walked out. He didn't come after me. And when I stepped back into the apartment, everything looked the same, except it wasn't. He was gone the next morning. A note left on the kitchen counter said he needed space. I didn't argue. I packed a small suitcase and booked a furnished apartment on the other side of town. A short lease, month to month, just enough to let the air settle around me. For the next few days, I let myself fall into a rhythm. Early mornings with coffee, emails from Margaret, my financial advisor, notes from Diane, my lawyer, checking in. I took walks. I slept better. I didn't answer Adam's calls. Then one afternoon, while I was reviewing a design proposal for a nonprofit campaign, I heard a knock at my office door. My assistant peeked in. "There's someone here to see you." Says his name is Adam Blackwell. He was standing in the hallway with a bouquet of lilies, the kind I used to buy for myself once a month, just to brighten up my kitchen table. His shirt was wrinkled and his eyes looked tired. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Privately." We walked to a cafe down the block, sat at a corner table near the window. "I've been thinking," he said, after a pause, "a lot. About everything." I let him speak. "You were right," he said. "I should have said something. I should have defended you. I let them take over and I didn't stop it. And I'm sorry." He looked down, hands wrapped around his coffee mug. "I told my parents I'm done letting them run my life, that if they want me around, they need to respect the people I choose. I told them I love you. I didn't say anything right away. I want to start over," he said. "No prenup, no pressure. Just us." I looked at him steady. "Your timing's interesting, Adam." He blinked. "What do you mean, I mean?" "You found your courage right after you learned I have money." He leaned back. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I asked. "Because you had plenty of chances to stand up for me before. And you didn't." His voice dropped. "I realized I was losing you. That's what woke me up." I nodded slowly. "You realized it when I was no longer the one without power." He started to speak again, but I stood. "I hope you meant what you said to your family. I really do. But this, it's not something I can come back to." He didn't follow me when I walked away. After that, the call stopped. But the attention didn't. Word about the inheritance spread faster than I expected. Colleagues who used to overlook me started including me in lunch meetings. A few local society pages mentioned my name in passing, nothing dramatic, just small notes about a promising young designer or a rising creative force. I declined most of the new invitations. I wasn't interested in charity auctions or Fashion Week previews. But one event caught my eye, a networking brunch for women entrepreneurs hosted by a foundation that offered grants to arts-focused startups. I went, quietly, sat near the back. By the end of the month, I'd decided to leave the agency. I gave my notice, cleared out my desk, and registered my own business name, Whitaker Design Collective. I rented a modest office space in River North, clean lines, open light, nothing too large, just enough room for 2 desks and a whiteboard. I started small, reached out to a few clients I'd worked with in the past, and took on projects that made me feel excited again. A few weeks into my new rhythm, my assistant buzzed in from the front desk. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "No appointment. Says her name is Evelyn Blackwell." I paused, then told her to send her in. Evelyn walked in with the same composure she always carried, scarf perfectly tied, posture impeccable. She looked around the office slowly, then turned to me. "You've done well," she said. "Thank you." She set a folder on the table between us, cream-colored again, different shape but familiar. "I thought we could start over," she said. "James misses you terribly." I opened the folder. A revised prenup. This one had softened language. Asset protection, yes, but clauses about mutual respect and allowances. It looked more like a compromise. I closed it without reading further. "I'm not coming back," I said. Evelyn's smile didn't fade, but her tone shifted. "Lauren, she said you and James were a good match, and now that your financial circumstances have changed, that's the problem." I said, quiet but firm. "Nothing's really changed. Not where it counts." She adjusted the strap on her purse. "You're being stubborn." "I'm being clear," I said. Evelyn stood, smoothed her jacket. "James will be disappointed. He'll recover," I said. "And maybe next time he won't wait until it's too late to see what's right in front of him." She nodded once and left without another word. That night, I stayed at the office late, reviewed a few applications for an open junior designer position, replied to emails, looked out the window for a while. Then I opened a fresh document and began sketching out plans for a scholarship fund, one for young design students from small towns just like me. Something real, something lasting. The next few months passed in a rhythm I didn't expect to enjoy so much. My new office slowly took shape, not all at once, but in quiet steps. A used bookshelf, a second-hand coffee machine, a print I'd had in storage for years that finally had a wall to live on. I met with clients who came through referrals, old contacts, and a few nonprofits who'd admired my work long before I'd ever had a team of my own. One morning, while waiting for a delivery, I stood by the window watching the sidewalk below. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel rushed. I just felt steady. About 2 months after I turned down Evelyn's revised prenup, I was reviewing portfolio samples from junior designers when my assistant buzzed in again. "There's someone here to see you," she said, hesitating. "It's Michael Blackwell." I blinked. "Greg's older brother." She nodded. "Says he just wants a minute. Should I send him away?" I thought for a second, then told her to let him in. Michael stepped into the office like someone who didn't quite know what to expect. He wore a sharp suit, but his expression looked tired, like he hadn't had a good night's sleep in a while. "This is a nice space," he said. "Thank you," I said, staying seated. "What brings you here?" He shifted his weight. "Just wanted to say, your firm's doing impressive work. That Children's Hospital campaign was something else." I nodded, waiting. He lowered his voice. "You probably don't care, but the family business isn't doing so great. Some bad investments. Things are tight." I wasn't sure what to say to that. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel much of anything. "James is engaged again," Michael added. "To someone from Boston, socialite. Mother approved?" I glanced at him. "He proposed 2 weeks ago. They're already arguing over the prenup. Her family's lawyers are giving ours a hard time." He gave a half smile. "It's been a circus." I didn't respond right away. "For what it's worth," he said, "I think my brother made a huge mistake. We misjudged you." I gave a small nod. "Thanks for saying that." Michael looked around once more, then left without asking for anything. That evening, I scrolled through social media on my phone while waiting for a load of laundry to finish. A photo popped up from a charity gala, James and his new fiancé smiling for cameras. Her gown was elegant, her expression polished. James looked polite, present, but his eyes didn't match his smile. I put my phone down and finished folding towels. The next day, I met with my financial advisor, Margaret, to finalize the launch of the scholarship fund. We'd been shaping the program over the last few weeks, selecting schools, drafting application guidelines, establishing mentorship hours. I'd volunteer myself. The plan was simple: support young designers from underrepresented backgrounds, not just with money, but with guidance, studio visits, real feedback, professional introductions. As the fund launched quietly online, I sat back in my office chair and watched the confirmation email arrive. I didn't post about it. I didn't send out a press release. I just saved the message and went back to work. Later that week, I met a friend for brunch. Erin sipped her coffee, then leaned back with a knowing look. "You've got that calm face again," she said, "like you're actually sleeping through the night." "I am," I said. She nodded. "You didn't just land on your feet. You built a whole new ground to stand on." I smiled. "Feels like the right one." That evening, I got a message from a gallery manager I'd met at a fundraiser. She invited me to a small opening for a local artist, said she thought I'd enjoy the work. I RSVP'd yes. At the gallery, while walking past a set of abstract oil panels, I met someone named Ethan. He was standing by a sculpture of bent copper, looking at it with quiet interest. We struck up a conversation about form and negative space. I found myself laughing. He asked if I wanted to grab a drink afterward. I said sure. We talked about books, cities, why people move and why they stay. He was a writer, published essays and short fiction mostly. He asked about my firm, not in a business scouting way, but with genuine interest. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other again. A bookstore meetup, a quiet dinner on a Thursday, a walk through the botanical garden while the leaves were still changing. He never asked about my past, not directly, not until one night 6 months into knowing him over a bowl of pasta at my place. He twirled his fork, then looked up. "I know about your ex," he said. I raised an eyebrow. Not the details he added, just that it didn't end well. I nodded. He kept his tone light. "Figured if it mattered, you'd tell me. Or not." "Your call." I set down my glass. "His family wanted me to sign a prenup," I said. "One that left me with nothing. No support, no protection, just silence." Ethan didn't blink. "That must have been hard." "It was," I said. "And then right after I found out I'd inherited millions from an uncle I barely knew, he let that settle." "I Googled you before our first date," he said, smiling. "Nothing creepy, just due diligence." I laughed. "I don't care about the money," he said, "but I do care about understanding what matters to you." I reached across the table, resting my hand over his. "Equality isn't about matching bank accounts," I said. "It's about how we show up for each other. That's what was missing before." He nodded. "Then I'll keep showing up." As we cleared the plates, I thought about how different this felt. Not softer, but steadier. No proving, no shrinking. Just two people meeting on solid ground. The winter passed slowly, the kind of slow that doesn't feel like a burden. My days had a rhythm. Morning started early with coffee at my desk, emails answered while the sun rose over the city. The office filled out a little more, a third desk, a quiet hire. Business came steadily enough to support a small team and still leave room for the kind of projects I used to dream about back when I was working late nights for someone else. By early spring, we'd launched a campaign for a local education nonprofit. It got picked up by 2 national news sites and brought in a wave of interest from organizations I'd long admired. The success felt quiet but solid. Nothing flashy, just right. Ethan and I took a trip in March, a few days upstate, a cabin with a fireplace and no reception. We cooked walked trails that hadn't quite lost their snow. It was the first time I'd been away without the pressure of checking in. The first time in years I felt completely off the grid, without fear that something might fall apart without me. When we got back to Chicago, the air had started to soften. Tulips and sidewalk planters, jackets unzipped, the beginning of something new. One morning in April, I had a meeting downtown. The elevator stopped on the 12th floor, and when the doors opened, I was face to face with Evelyn Blackwell. She didn't recognize me at first. Then her eyes widened, and she gave a polite nod. "Lauren," she said, stepping aside to let me through. "I didn't expect to see you here." I returned the nod. Morning. We rode the rest of the way in silence. Later that afternoon, I saw a message on my office line. It was her. No return number, just a short clipped voicemail. "If you have a moment this week, I'd like to speak, in person." I didn't call back. I wasn't angry. I just didn't feel the need. A few days later, a message came through my assistant again. This time, Evelyn was in the lobby. "She says she won't stay long," my assistant said. "Wants to speak privately." I nodded. "Bring her in." Evelyn walked in with the same poise she always had, but something in her posture was different. Not fragile, just less certain. She didn't sit right away, just looked around the space, eyes pausing on a framed campaign poster on the wall. "You've come a long way," she said quietly. I waited. "I'm not here to argue," she added. "I just thought you might want to know." James's engagement ended 3 months ago. I looked at her but said nothing. "I suppose it's not my place to say," she went on. "But he hasn't been himself." She paused, adjusting her bracelet. "He misses you." I kept my voice even. "I hope he's all right." She seemed caught off guard by the calmness. "That's very gracious of you." "It's not about being gracious," I said. "It's about being done with that chapter." Evelyn stood a little straighter. "Things change. They do," I agreed. She didn't stay long. When she left, she didn't ask anything of me. No proposal, no folder, just a quiet exit. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my condo. The windows were open. The sounds of traffic drifted up from below. Ethan came out carrying 2 glasses of wine. "I saw you talking to someone at the office today," he said, handing me one. "She seemed familiar." "That was James's mother," I said. "Evelyn?" He raised his eyebrows. "And how was that strange?" I said after a moment. "But peaceful." We sat in silence for a while, watching the lights shift on the skyline. "I think I've really moved on," I said. "Not just from James, from needing anyone to decide if I'm enough." Ethan nodded. "You never needed to ask for permission." I leaned my head on his shoulder. And now I finally believe that. The following week, I was invited to speak at a design conference. It wasn't the first time, but this one was different. It was hosted in the same hotel where I'd first met Adam at that charity gala all those months ago. Walking through the lobby brought back the sound of that night, the soft jazz, the clinking glasses, the buzz of old money and curated charm. But this time, I wasn't there adjusting signage. I was the one standing behind the podium. The room was full, designers, business owners, students with notebooks and eager eyes. I talked about the work, about building something from the ground up, about how the best creative ideas don't come from pressure, they come from space, from safety, from people who make room for your voice instead of trying to shrink it. During the Q&A, I spotted a familiar face in the back. Evelyn again. She didn't ask a question, just watched. When it ended, I shook hands, posed for a photo or two, and walked toward the hallway. She approached me near the exit. "Your talk was very well done," she said. "You've become something quite remarkable." I met her eyes. "Thank you." She hesitated. "You surprised me." "I surprised myself," I said. She smiled faintly. "You've changed." I thought about that for a second. "No," I said. "I just stopped hiding who I already was." The day after the conference, I came into the office early. The sun was still rising, casting long shadows across the lobby floor. I'd made a habit of arriving before the phone started ringing, before the team showed up, just to sit at my desk with a mug of coffee and a few minutes of quiet. My assistant left a note on my desk. Michael Blackwell called. said it's personal but not urgent. I set it aside. That afternoon, I returned his call. His voice was lower than usual, almost careful. I just wanted to say, I heard about the scholarship program. That's something special, Lauren. Thanks, I said. It's been in the works for a while. He hesitated. James asked me to reach out. Not to convince you of anything, just to say he still thinks about you. More than he should, probably. I didn't say much in return. There wasn't anything left to say. A few days later, I saw a headline in a local business journal. Blackwell Investments reorganizes amid internal shakeups. The article mentioned restructuring, layoffs, asset liquidations, the kind of language that usually signals trouble. A photo of Robert and Evelyn accompanied the piece. Both looked older, tired, stiff smiles held in place. That night, Ethan and I went for a walk after dinner. The sidewalks were damp from a light rain, but the air felt warm. As we passed a bakery closing for the night, I told him about the article. I don't wish them failure, I said. But I'm not surprised. He nodded. They never seemed like the type to adapt well. We didn't talk about it again. 2 weeks later, I ran into James. It was a Tuesday evening, and I'd just left a board meeting for a local arts foundation. The parking garage was half empty, and I was walking to my car when I heard someone say my name. I turned. He was standing near the elevator bank, hands in his pockets. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi." We stood there for a moment, not moving. "I heard about the conference," he said. "Everyone's been talking about it." I nodded. "You've really done it, Lauren. You've built something amazing." "Thank you." He looked down, then back up. "I've thought about that night. The dinner, the way I didn't speak up." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a kind of quiet knowing. "You were right," he said, "about all of it." I didn't respond. He gave a small smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. My engagement ended. We weren't right for each other. It took me longer than it should have to see that. I nodded again. "I know." He glanced around the garage, then back at me. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, not for what happened that was on me, but for taking so long to realize what I lost." I looked at him for a moment, then said, "I loved you." He nodded slowly. "I know." I unlocked my car and opened the door. "Take care of yourself, James." "You too," he said. "You look happy." "I am." As I pulled out of the parking garage, I didn't look back. Later that night, I scrolled through my inbox before bed. There was a thank you note from a scholarship recipient, a high school senior from Detroit. She'd attached a photo of herself holding an acceptance letter from a design school in New York. I read it twice. Then I shut my laptop, turned off the lamp, and let the room go quiet. Spring moved into early summer. My team grew by one more designer. We added a second meeting room and finally replaced the aging printer that had been jammed one too many times. Ethan started writing at my office a few days a week. He liked the energy, he said. It helped him focus. Sometimes we'd share lunch on the rooftop terrace, sandwiches from the deli downstairs, coffee in paper cups. One afternoon, as we sat watching the traffic below, he turned to me. "Do you ever think about how different your life is now?" "All the time," I said. He waited, but not in a way that feels disconnected. More like, I can finally breathe. He reached across the table and took my hand. "You've earned every bit of that space." I looked at him and nodded. "I know." A year after I walked away from the Blackwell estate, I barely recognized my life in the best possible way. My company had grown to a team of 15. We'd taken on projects I used to only daydream about: national campaigns, museum exhibits, rebrands for nonprofits, doing work that mattered. I'd found a rhythm that made sense, one that didn't cost me sleep or make me feel small. I led a business, but I still designed when I wanted to. I still sketched ideas on napkins. I still felt proud when we launched something new and good into the world. My scholarship program had its first full class of recipients. I kept photos of them on the office bulletin board, young artists, thinkers, creators, from towns not unlike the one I grew up in. They sent me notes now and then. I read every one. My home wasn't flashy. It was calm, filled with light. A few pieces of art I'd collected slowly. A kitchen I actually used a chair by the window where I liked to read in the late afternoon. I didn't rush to decorate it all at once. I let it become mine in its own time. And then there was Ethan. He never tried to fix me. He never asked me to be anything other than who I already was. He brought me books he thought I'd like, left notes tucked between my meeting agendas, held my hand when I needed it, and sometimes when I didn't, but it felt right anyway. One Sunday, we walked along the lake just before sunset. The air had that early fall crispness, the kind that makes you reach for a sweater, but smile at the sky. As we sat on a bench watching a boat drift in the distance, he turned to me. "I like this version of you," he said quietly. I looked over. "What version is that?" "The one who knows she doesn't need anyone's permission." I smiled. Took a while to meet her. He nodded. "But she's worth the wait." Sometimes life doesn't hand you a clean ending. It hands you a slow, steady return to yourself. Not loud, not dramatic, just strong, rooted, clear. The truth is, the inheritance didn't change me. It revealed who I could be without fear. It gave me space not to prove anything, but to live with both feet firmly under me. And as for the Blackwells, I don't think about them much, not with anger, not with regret, just with understanding. Some families are built to protect walls. Others are built to open doors. I chose the latter. I chose me. If you've ever had to walk away from something that once felt like your whole future, I hope you know this. What's ahead can be better than what you lost. Not louder, not more glamorous, just truer to you. Thanks for sitting with me through this story. If it reminded you of something in your own life, I hope you'll share it. And if you know someone who's still finding their voice, maybe send this their way. Take care of your worth. It's the kind of wealth no one can take.